Hey guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, and I'm pretty excited to bring you the OnePlus One. This is the phone that they're calling the flagship killer because it's priced like a budget phone but has the specs and design of a high-end smartphone. So for $299, you get a 16 gig version available in white, or for $349, you get a 64 gig version available in black sandstone. That's the version I have here. So only $50 more gets you 64 gigs of storage. By comparison, the iPhone charges $200 to make that upgrade. Now, before we talk about the high-end specs, let's go ahead and start unboxing this thing. So let's go and pull this tab here. Just gonna lift the lid, and inside is the OnePlus box. So it's got a little tab here to lift out. There we go. So if you look at the packaging, you have this nice white and red theme. You have this little tab here to pull open the drawer. But before I do that, I want to flip this on the back to show you that we have the black sandstone version in 64 gig capacity. This is the global version, which works on LTE, GSM, and WCDMA carriers. Now on the side, we have our OnePlus logo. Nothing on the bottom here, nothing on the side, nothing on the top. All right, so let's go ahead and slide this out. OnePlus branding there. Flip this open. Again, very nice presentation. I'm actually really impressed by the packaging. And we have this little tab here to lift up, to lift our phone out. There we go. On the back, you can already feel it, that nice sandstone texture. And I've actually seen this material before, where it's used on the Logitech Harmony Ultimate Remote Control, which gives you this nice grippable texture, but does not leave fingerprints. So it doesn't get greasy or anything like that. It's actually a really nice material to have on the phone. All right, so let's go ahead and lift this tray out of the way. Underneath, we have all of our accessories, including our USB cable and the SIM ejection tool. So let's go ahead and pull out this SIM ejection tool. And as you can see here, it comes in this little silicone sleeve. So you can hook this on your keychain so you don't lose it. You can pop it out here, show you our SIM ejection tool right there. Really nice. So again, they're not skimping on anything here, even though this is the budget smartphone. Now we also have our unconventional USB cable. As you can see here, it even has a cutout for the cable. So we have a little tie down here we can release. Opens up, so that stays with the cable so you can keep it nice and organized. And as you can see here, this is a wide tangle-free cable, red and white to go with the color scheme here. And you can see here we have a standard micro USB connector right there. And then we have a non-standard USB connection right here. So this is kind of a slim profile USB port connection. So as you can see here, you have those exposed connectors on one side. Now the OnePlus One also comes with a wall adapter for your specific region. In this case, I have a US wall adapter. So this is shipped kind of with your phone, but not included with the packaging of your phone. So this is not an extra cost option. This is just how they choose to package it. So let's go ahead and slice the plastic tab right here. All right, so let's just push the packaging through, and here we go. This is the wall adapter. Again, very nice packaging. Well done here. You can see that even the wall adapter is nicely designed. It is a bit on the large side here. We have our OnePlus One branding up top, USB port on the side. We have all of our information toward the prongs here. This is 2 amps and 5 volts. Now just to show you how that non-standard USB cable works, this will work with any USB port, and in order to insert it, you basically turn the contacts down, and you can see that spacer toward the top. Well, this slots below that spacer here. So all you do is connect it like so, and you can use it for charging or syncing. All right, so let's get to the phone. Let's peel off some plastic here. So we have a little tab here to lift off. Try again. All right, so let's go ahead and boot this up. I'm just tapping and holding the power button along the right-hand side. So now let's talk about the specs. We have a 5.5-inch full HD display, so 1080p display with a pixel density of 401. This is powered by a Snapdragon 801 processor clocked at 2.5 gigahertz. We have 3 gigs of RAM. We also have 64 gigs of internal storage, which is not expandable because it does not have a built-in SD card slot. Now we have a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, good for 1080p HD video, and then we have a 13 megapixel camera on the back with stereo speakers. So again, high-end phone specs in this case, but not high-end pricing. Now at the bottom we have our 2 stereo speakers with JBL sound. We also have a pinhole microphone right next to it, as well as our micro USB charging port. Now on the left-hand side we have our volume rocker along with our micro SIM tray, which is nearly invisible. You can see we have a little SIM ejection port right here for ejecting the tray. Now on the top we have a headphone jack and a noise cancellation microphone. And on the right hand side we have our sleep wake power button. And as you can see here we have a 4.4 millimeter edge which does curve out toward the back. Now on the back we have another microphone along with our camera module, which includes a dual LED flash. This is not a dual color LED flash, just two LEDs for an extra bright flash. We also have our 13 megapixel rear facing camera which can record video at 4K resolution. There is no optical image stabilization. Now we also have our CyanogenMod branding, and that's because this phone is powered by Android 4.4.2 running CM11S. So that's a crowdsourced version of Android. It's kind of an Android skin that emphasizes a stock experience with extra features and customization. All right, so as I tilt the phone into the light, you can actually see the shadow of the ambient light sensor and proximity sensor, as well as our LED notification light right next to the 5.5 megapixel camera, which is good for 1080p video, so pretty decent front-facing camera. We also have our flush earpiece, which OnePlus does highlight in its own keynote, saying that the flush earpiece will not gather dust and doesn't stick out like it does on other phones like the Galaxy S5. Now if you look at the bezel, you can see we have this nice metal band that surrounds the glass. The glass actually floats upon that. So we have this nice recessed bezel with a floating glass design, which I think looks pretty nice and kind of unique. Now toward the bottom, you do have these off-screen Android controls, but you can turn them off and enable on-screen Android controls if you prefer. They are fairly dim, but they are there if you prefer them. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the user interface. Now, the great thing here is that you can double tap on the screen to wake it up, and you can slide down to unlock it. You can also double tap the system tray up here to put it back to sleep, again, to wake it up like so. You can also swipe right to get to the camera, quickly launch the camera. You can also draw a V on the surface here to activate the flash on the back. You can draw a V again to turn it off. You can draw a 0 to activate the camera really quickly, like so. You can also draw a pause sign just by using a two-finger gesture to swipe down to resume playback of whatever music app you're using right now. Now, in addition to pause, you can also resume playback, draw an arrow to skip to the next track, or draw an arrow to skip to the previous track. Now, if you take a look at the home screen, you can see that this is pretty close to stock Android, but of course it is the CyanogenMod, so we can see there's some design changes here. And I think they've done a really nice job with the design, but of course you can heavily modify this to whatever theme you want, thanks to all the options available to CyanogenMod. Now, as you can see, we have our theme showcase. There are a lot of options here. So you can see some of these are free, like Great Freedom. Some of them are paid. You can see the price here. This goes through the CyanogenMod store. So $1.75, JB Extreme is $1.99, Black Cat $2.15, etc. You can see there are lots of them, lots and lots of them to pick from. Now, the one that comes standard with the device is Hexo. And in fact, you can manage your themes by going to settings here. Let's go to settings. You can see we have our themes right here. You can see the theme packs that are available. Hexo is defaulted. We also have Holo down here, which you can select. I'm just going to stick with Hexo right here. This changes everything from the icons to the text. You can change. You can also select what exactly you want changed, from the fonts to the icons, ringtones, notifications, alarms. You know, the audio profile, everything is changed with these themes. And you can swipe through here to see exactly what the changes will bring. Now you can see we have our app drawer here, which includes lots of Google apps and some of the CyanogenMod apps. There's not a lot of third-party apps here. In fact, the only thing they've added includes Screencast for recording your screen, which is quite handy. We also have a messaging app, which pretty much integrates with Hangouts. We have a torch icon, or a torch app, for activating the flash on the back here. Of course, you can also use the gestures to do so. In fact, when you have the torch activated, you also get a control in your drop-down notification shade, so you can turn that off and on. We also have a calculator, which has several options here if you just swipe left and right. Now, they've also included a file manager here, so you can navigate through your files the old-fashioned way. Now, we also have a gallery app here, which is broken down by moments, which organizes photos according to day and location. We also have our albums, which is broken down by basically foldered items. So we have our screenshots, screencasts, our camera roll, and our Instagram photos. We also have our media. This allows us to see all of our media from photos to video in one big shot here. And of course, we also have a playback option for a slideshow. You can also see your local storage, and you can add additional services. So you can add Google+, Flickr, Facebook, or Dropbox. Now, I also have an audio equalizer here through AudioFX, and you can select your profiles from speaker to headset to USB to Bluetooth to wireless. You can select your reverb options from medium room to large room. We also have the Screencast app, which basically records the screen you're working with right now. So for example, you can see I'm swiping through my home screen, press home or my app drawer. I can move things around here. And if I swipe down now, I can stop recording. Basically records the screen you're working with. So it's recording both the audio as well as the screen. Press home or my app drawer. I can move things around here. And if I swipe down now, I can stop. So as you can see here, I can move my app drawer icon around. If I go to my app drawer here, if I press my menu button here, I have several options here. I can change my scrolling effect. So I can do rotate down, cube in, cube out, and you can see all of the available options kind of cycle through for you when you select them. And I can also sort your apps by title, launch count, and install time. And you can also quickly jump to your settings panel. From the home screen, if you press the menu button, you get to your wallpapers, your widgets, or to settings. You can also change the scrolling effect just like you can in the app drawer. You can also tap and hold on the screen to get to your home screen editor, and you can change which one you want to be the default home screen. So we have the standard default home screen, and if we want to change it to that, just select it, and there we go. Now, if you want to add additional home screens, basically drag and drop an icon off the screen. So for example, let's go ahead and drag and drop Drive to a new home screen. There we go, creates another home screen for you. Now, in terms of the off-screen Android keys, if you tap and hold on the home button, it takes you to Google Now, but of course you can customize this under settings, and I'll show you that. You have your back button and your menu button. Menu button will basically take you to whatever menu controls you have for the specific location you're in or whatever app you're in. So for example, if you're in Chrome, if you tap that, it takes you to your menu options. Now, if you tap and hold on that menu button, it takes you to your recent apps. You can swipe them out of the way to close them or jump to them to get to the app, and of course you have a clear all function in there as well. Now, if you prefer on-screen Android controls, we can go to settings right here, and we can go to our buttons right there and enable on-screen nav bar. Now, if we enable this, you can see some of the screen is now taken up by those Android controls. So you can see they're transparent on the lock screen or home screen. If we go to an app, you can see it does take away some space. Now, if you tap and hold the power button along the side here, you get to the expanded desktop option. So when you enable expanded desktop, it fills up the screen here. And in order to see those buttons again, you just swipe up to get access to them. Same with the status bar up top. Now, by default, if you swipe down on the right, you get to your quick settings panel. If you swipe down on the left, you get to your notifications. This is pretty familiar to a tablet interface. You can also use a two-finger gesture to do the same here. Now, you can change this behavior under settings. If you go to interface and go to quick settings panel, you have the quick pull down option. So you can turn it off. You can select the right hand or left hand side to enable or to swipe down to get to those quick settings panels. Now let's take a look at that drop-down notification sheet. So you can see up here we have our quick settings toggles, which includes Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, our flashlight, which you can turn on or off. We have our screen lock rotation, and you have your profile. So you can change the users available here because this does support multi-user mode. Now, if you go up here, you can see all of your toggles, and you can add additional ones or modify them here. So for example, if you go up to plus here, if you go to add, you can start adding things. So we have our camera, expanded desktop mode, go to sleep, lock screen, LTE, NFC, performance profile, quiet hour, screen timeout, sound, sync, volume, and Wi-Fi AP. So you can see we've added our volume control. Now we can move this around just by tapping and holding on it and dropping it somewhere, or we can drag it to delete it. You can also reset to default by going up here. Now I want to add something that I think is a little more useful here, and that is quiet hours. So if we add quiet hours, basically this is a do not disturb function. Now if we go to our quick setting toggles, we now have quiet hours, which is off. We can toggle that on or off, and if you tap and hold on it, you can actually get to your control panel for enabling this feature. So this allows you to adjust its behavior, for example, time of day, what you want silenced or not silenced, that sort of thing. Now, if we go to the notification drawer here, you can see that these quick settings do not reflect the order or items that appear in the full settings panel. Now, you can change this under settings. So if we go to interface, go to notification drawer, you can go to linked layout. So this will use the same tiles and layout as the quick settings panel. So now if you go to the drop down, you can see that they all appear in this tray up here. Now, if we tap and hold the power button, we get to the option for profile. So what is a profile? Now let's go to settings. Right here, if we go down to personal, we have profile modes, which are enabled right now. So if we tap on this, we get to these profiles, which we can adjust. So for example, when you're in work mode, you may want to disable some of the notifications, or you may want to change your ringtone for work as well. Now you can also add additional profiles here. So for example, you can add a meeting mode as well. Now at the bottom of the profiles, you can see we can delete it, or we can select a trigger to activate that profile. So for example, you can see that I have my Gear Live connected. Right now that's not set to trigger it, but I could if I want. Same with sync in my car. So for example, if I'm in the automobile mode, I can use sync to trigger the profile for automobile. So for example, let's go to automobile mode. Let's go to our trigger here. Let's go ahead and select sync. Let's go to say on connect. So when I connect to sync, it will automatically trigger the automobile mode. Now I can also use NFC tags to enable this profile. Now let's take a look at our settings panel. There's a lot to take a look at here. So for example, under home, we have our launcher settings. Right now I just have Trebuchet, which is the default CM launcher. Of course, you can also go to settings to adjust some of the behavior of this launcher. And of course, you can add additional launchers and select which one you want to be the default launcher. Under lock screen, we have interesting settings, including button actions. So under button actions, I've enabled home unlock. So basically all I have to do to unlock the device is tap and hold the home button, which is very useful. You can also change how the clock widget displays information. So for example, we have clock and alarm, the weather panel, calendar events. If you tap on these, you get additional controls as well. Under interface, we have things like status bar. So for example, we can show the clock in the status bar or disable that. So as you can see here, the clock disappears and reappears. Battery status style, so you can have icon in portrait, which is the standard battery icon. We have icon in landscape. We have the circle, which is actually the default icon. And then we have text, which I prefer here. Now you can also enable brightness control. So this will allow us to swipe across the status bar to change brightness of the display. Now also useful is show notification count. So it will display the number of pending notifications for a specific app. This is particularly useful for email. Now let's take a look at the camera app, which again is pretty close to stock Android. So we can take a photograph, we can tap anywhere on the scene to focus and adjust exposure. You can also record video. This does record video in 4K resolution as it's doing right now. That means I can't snap photos while recording 4K. So you can see that's X'd out. We can stop that. We also have our mode selector right here. So if we go right here, you can select certain modes. For example, we can select Smart Scene, which will automatically select the right mode for the scene. Or you can manually select the scene mode you want. So slow shutter, action shot, backlit, beach mode, candlelight, etc. You also have HDR right here, so if you want to enable HDR mode, you can do so. You can also switch between the front-facing and rear-facing camera like so, and you have additional controls right here for settings. So you can see the size is 13 megapixels. You can also change the quality of the image, so I have it set to 100%. You can also select your slow shutter speed. You can do auto, half a second, 1 second, 2 second, 4 second, or 8 second. Of course, you'll need a steady hand or tripod for that. Under video, we have our 4K option here. So you can see we have 4K UHD, but we also have 4K DCI, or you can do 1080p, 720p, 480p, or WVGA. We also have time lapse, which gives us lots of options. So if we enable this, you can see we can select all the way from 0.5 seconds to all the way up to 24 seconds, or we can select minutes, or we can select hours. You can see there's lots of options here. You also have your video codec, H.264 or 263 or MPEG-4. We also have our audio codec right here, AMR, NB, or AAC. Now if we swipe to general, you can enable use of the power button for shutter release, the volume button for zooming, and you can switch to left-hand orientation. Now in terms of 4K video recording, the results are pretty decent. I'm actually impressed overall by its performance, but I did run into a substantial issue, and that was overheating. When it was recording 4K video for extended periods of time, up to 5 minutes, it began overheating the device, and at that point, the frame rate of the video recording would drop, which caused some problems. And I can actually feel just how warm the device got while recording 4K video. Now this is not uncommon while recording 4K. I actually ran into this with the LG G3 as well. So there's a lot of demands on the device when recording 4K, and this is no exception with the OnePlus One. Now I'm really impressed by the camera quality. Again, 13 megapixels with a 6-segment lens. That's very similar to the specs on an iPhone. So you get pretty high-end camera specs, and the results do show it. So you see pretty good color reproduction, focus is sharp and accurate, and you see a good balance between the lowlights and highlights of an image. So things look pretty balanced. You're able to get pretty foolproof images out of this phone without tweaking the settings. So definitely impressed overall by the camera quality. Now its weakness, like a lot of high megapixel cameras, is just low light performance. There's no optical image stabilization, so sometimes it's hard to get a sharp image, and it's a pretty grainy image with overexposure and that sort of thing. The flash is pretty bright, does a pretty good job illuminating the scene, but it isn't the most accurate color flash. The software seems to do a good job balancing out the green color of the flash in most images, but it's definitely not the best flash out there. A lot of flashes are using dual tone, but that isn't the case with this phone. Alright guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, testing out the front-facing camera of the OnePlus One. Again, 5 megapixels, good for 1080p video at 30 frames per second. So that's a pretty high-end camera for a front-facing camera, which is now becoming the norm on higher-end smartphones. But of course, the OnePlus One is priced like a low-end smartphone. So again, pretty impressive specs here on this camera. Now, the OnePlus and the LG G3 have the same 5.5-inch screen size, but of course the LG G3 is more compact and has a higher resolution display. This is a QHD display versus the 1080p here on the OnePlus. Both displays look excellent, but of course the LG G3 has a lot of resolution to work with. Of course, you can see the LG G3 is a lot more compact, but it doesn't give you the option for off-screen Android controls, which, as we can see here, are actually very useful in the OnePlus case. Now, because the OnePlus is so lightweight with that grippable texture on the back, it actually feels very comfortable to handle. I don't find this too big at all. I actually love the way this phone feels. Now, there is that rumored 5.5-inch iPhone, which has that same screen size of the OnePlus here, but you can see that the rumored 5.5-inch iPhone 6 is quite a bit taller than the OnePlus. But of course, the iPhone, as it likes to be, is thinner than the OnePlus. Now, just to give you some idea of the size comparison between this and the very popular Galaxy S5, again, you can see that this 5.1-inch display is still dwarfed by the 5.5-inch display here. But of course, this is Super AMOLED. In this case, this is also the Galaxy S5 Prime, so this is a QHD display as well, just like the LG G3. But again, you can see this is a much more compact phone overall. Now, in terms of performance, both the LG G3 and the OnePlus have very similar internal specs. They have a Snapdragon 801 clocked at 2.5 gigahertz. They both have 3 gigs of RAM, and they both have the same GPU, the Adreno 330. So they should see similar results, but you can see that the OnePlus actually bests the LG G3 by fairly comfortable margin, especially in the multi-core score. Now, the OnePlus also features stereo speakers at the edge of the phone, which delivers pretty good audio. So let's go ahead and take a listen. I'm pretty impressed by this LCD IPS display with a pixel density of 401. Really sharp display, text looks excellent here, and the whites are crisp and clear. Blacks are pretty dark, although not up to OLED standards, but they're pretty dark, and colors are not oversaturated. They're not as bright or vivid as you might see on the GS5, but they definitely look a little more accurate. Definitely an excellent display overall. Now, when I first activated the device, I did notice that there was a significant yellowing of the display toward the bottom, and that is the result of the adhesive used to bond the glass to the LCD display. It hadn't cured yet, so it needs to be exposed to UV light, which will happen over time. But if you want to accelerate the process, just place it in the sun for a little bit or place it under a UV light and it will correct the problem. Now, in conclusion, I'm really impressed by the OnePlus One with all of its features. It's excellent design with a nice grippable texture on the back, which feels really nice to handle day to day. It does a nice job hanging onto your hand. It's also nice, lightweight, and thin with a nice, solid, rigid construction. It feels really high quality. It doesn't feel budget at all. We also have a really good camera with excellent audio thanks to the stereo speakers at the bottom with a lot of equalization options. We have a beautiful 5.5-inch display with a high pixel density and pretty good color reproduction and accuracy. And since we're running CyanogenMod, which is pretty close to stock Android, it runs quickly, it's very battery efficient, and it gives you lots of options without giving you a heavy, ugly skin. So definitely impressed overall with the packaging of this device, the pricing, the features, and the design. So without a doubt, the OnePlus One is a huge home run for me. So that's going to do it for me in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.